Have you noticed that in the past few years it seems like anime openings have changed? Now we get these ethereal art films that are like you took your old home videos and accidentally partially recorded over them with your clips of ink being dropped into water that you were hoping to sell on stock footage websites at some point. To be clear, I really like this style. So let's break it down and see what makes it unique, why it's spreading like wildfire, and how it's inextricably linked to not only the rise of digital animation, but also both of the greatest individual frames in all of anime. This one and this one. Stop laughing. Why are you laughing? I first noticed this trend with Jujutsu Kaisen, specifically the second opening, and this cut of Nanami walking down some random hallway that's permanently printed on the inside of my eyelids, so I see it whenever I close my eyes, and most recently, this prologue sequence from Lazarus. It's like a blend of extreme realism and abstract vibes-based imagery. For the sake of this video, I'm gonna call it Bloomcore, after the way you tend to see this heavy bloom or glare effect applied to anything bright or reflective. That's miles away from fully capturing it, but it'll do just fine so you know what I'm talking about. Wait, actually, does that mean something else? Images, safe search off. Whoa! Oh, God. Nah, I'm just messing. It's just floral stuff. Could be a lot worse. I'm fine with that. Once you start noticing it, it's all over the place. Chainsaw Man, Ranking of Kings, Heavenly Delusion. For this season, even The Summer Hikaru Died, to some extent. Those are just the ones I personally noticed. And it all originates from one guy. This guy.
Hello.
This is Shingo Yamashita, one of the first generation of animators who came up on the internet posting little animation gifs like this one and getting discovered rather than going through the traditional studio career path, and the guy who about 4 years ago seemed to suddenly start directing every single anime opening. The trend has started to grow beyond just his personal work at this point though. He only directed most of the examples I just listed, but he's clearly the one who popularized it. Before we get too far into that though, let's get a good idea for where Bloomcore came from and what aspects define it. So what would you expect from a pre-2020 Battle Shonen opening, for example? Maybe some introductions to the main characters with some highly designed cards like these, a little chill moment in the middle to take a breather right before the song gets to the chorus, ramps up the energy, and we're treated to a few sequences of extremely cool, highly choreographed action that flow from one to the next and show these same characters doing their thing. These may or may not be cuts from the actual show, and they're always a heightened version, but the lines and colors are generally at least rendered in basically the same visual style as the show itself. Then let's have the main character look either at or away from the camera and do a very cool freeze frame. It's an oversimplification, of course, but those are the guidelines. On the other hand, this style is a little hard to pin down, but I know it when I see it, to borrow a phrase troublingly relevant to our time. If we take a selection of screenshots that most obviously represent Bloomcore and toss them into a Bloomcore mood board, hopefully some common attributes will start to make themselves known. What's that? You're desperate to know more about the tool I'm using right now? Well, stranger, that's a trade secret, I'm afraid. But I guess I can make an exception. The good folks at Milanote were kind enough to sponsor this video after all. Milanote is a tool for organizing your creative projects and ideas into visual boards. They have tons of templates for anything from storyboarding a short film you're working on to planning out your brand strategy, but in this case, I could pick out this distinct style visually, but I didn't have a concrete set of criteria to define it. So I used Milanote's mood board template and started dropping in my screenshots. It started as a jumbled mess, but as I moved things around, extracting some color swatches and grouping the images by common features, some themes quickly started to rise to the surface. It even allowed me to color code the images so that even after scrambling them around like a poker dealer who had never actually learned how to shuffle a deck of cards properly, I still know where each one comes from. As someone whose brain runs on chaos and panic but simultaneously craves order, this process was exactly what I needed to organize my thoughts, and the way you can just drag and drop basically anything, even fully functional embedded video players, just makes it feel super intuitive to use. But here's the twist. This board and this one, which is a secret for later in the video, avert your eyes, are actually both nested inside my much less chaotic looking overall project planning board for this video. Also, I was not expecting this, but look how smooth this brush engine is. Like, I just sketched out these thumbnail ideas with my mouse, but if I use my drawing tablet, it even uses pressure sensitivity to control the thickness. Anyway, Milanote is available for free with no time limit, so click the link in the description to go sign up for a free Milanote account, and let me know in the comments what you end up using it for. Okay, after this process, here are my criteria. First, abstract scenes and close-up shots that offer visual metaphors or symbolism and communicate general vibes, but have almost no interest at all in literally representing what the show is actually about. In the second Jujutsu Kaisen opening, which I think is where Shingo Yamashita really started to commit to the bit, you know? There are still some elements of that shonen structure, but instead of those clear visual representations of the characters, we get a series of slow-motion shots from unusual angles that home in on little details like raindrops, reflections in a puddle, or this butterfly. And when we finally do see Itadori's face, unobscured for the first time, it feels almost incidental. Instead of a series of images designed to accurately show you what the series is all about, it's like you just dropped an artsy loner with a Super 8 camera and a cigarette into the world of the show and let them film whatever they found interesting. Next, Baroque abstract effects cuts, often with shapes dispersing or disintegrating at a very high frame rate. Extensive compositing effects that mimic the imperfections of a physical camera. Stuff like lens distortion and shallow focus are already really common in anime, but this takes it to a whole different level. Lens flares, light leaks, chromatic aberration, camera shake, fast-moving objects that go completely out of focus, even added film grain sometimes. Many shots are even made to look fully handheld, like that one tracking shot of Nanami, or to take it even further, this exquisite 5/6 Lord. This exquisite 5/6 of a second. Why did I write that? From the this exquisite 5/6 of a second from The Summer Hikaru Died, where they imitate the effect of a camera physically strapped to this guy's chest. Which brings me to the next point, deep integration of 3D CGI, often used for backgrounds that allow for the previously mentioned camera movement, but also used for foreground elements. Overlays and double exposures, or in the case of Lazarus, triple or quadruple exposures, an animation style that emphasizes extremely realistic motion instead of highly polished drawings, often getting really freeform and expressive in heightened moments, even letting line art disappear completely, or in the case of this cut from Heavenly Delusion, letting it decouple from the colors underneath, a very cool effect. A particular interest in more low-key personal moments and character acting, characters just hanging out or striding purposefully past the camera, stuff that might be happening off-screen during the show but gives some insight to the character dynamics. And finally, something that I didn't realize was so central to this look until putting together this mood board, harsh, high-contrast backlighting. It really cannot be overstated. In like 60 or 70% of these cuts, there's one primary light source, often the sun at golden hour, directly behind the subject, which is either in partial shadow or complete silhouette with a glowing rim light to separate it from the background. I can't blame them, it's a really cool look. Try going outside with your phone at golden hour and just take a picture of something pointing directly at the sun, but with the sun covered up by your subject. That picture's probably gonna look pretty cool. Alright, that's 8 criteria. Obviously all 8 won't always show up, but I think if you see 5 or 6 of them, it can safely be categorized as Bloomcore. Until around 2020, Shingo Yamashita was primarily a key animator, one of those ones who little freaks like me love to talk about on the internet because of their dazzling action spectacles like these. His work tends to be extremely emotional, balancing expressionism with realism, which I realize sounds like a contradiction. He cites legendary action animator Norio Matsumoto as one of his biggest inspirations, and you can definitely see the similarity. Matsumoto is also the guy behind this hilarious frame of broken neck Sasuke, which looks ridiculous as an isolated image, but when you play the whole cut, it actually adds some really nice energy to the motion. Yamashita's action cuts often feature dynamic camera movement and rapid, highly realistic motion, often based on reference and previs, but line work that feels loose and gestural, allowing characters to drift pretty far off model if that would provide for better expression of their energy and emotion. Sometimes even letting the lines themselves disappear entirely to give a better impression of motion blur or a certain lighting condition. His work isn't without its detractors though. Sometimes he would play it really fast and or loose with the line work to the point where people would actually start to notice, like that time he followed Matsumoto's example a little too closely and animated this infamous cut, which contains a smorgasbord of arguably even more hilarious frames ripe for ridicule online. Now, this isn't a video about defending this cut, and I haven't even seen the whole episode, but I think we've all come to the conclusion at this point that it's dumb to say this is just bad animation, right? Like, I'm definitely not against having a good guffaw about an objectively funny picture, but it's not an accident. His physical body bulges, ripples, and stretches with the sheer energy and rage, presumably, I haven't watched the show, powering this punch, and as the anticipation transitions into the downward swing and the camera gets closer to his face, it sort of blends into a combination of that and an extended series of smear frames. Learn to draw, Edvard Munch. That is literally not even what a guy is supposed to look like. It is true, though, that Yamashita's work definitely values real-feeling motion at the expense of polished drawings, even for subtler character acting moments, a style that I personally love, and that's due, at least in part, to his digital workflow.
紙で描いてるとですね、どんな動きになってるかね、こうやってこう紙でペラペラしないと見れないんですけど、ソフトで描くとエンターを押したり再生キーを押すだけで動いて見えるんですよね、タイミングがついて。絵的な魅力に弱かったりするものに OK を出してしまうっていうのが、まあ僕らの問題点としてよく言われてはいましたね。
And he doesn't shy away from using the versatility of digital to blend different tools together to fit his goal. Well, in live action, if I see someone say, I love you, I don't feel convinced that she's saying I love you to me. But if an anime girl is saying I love you, I can feel that she's saying it to me. It feels like something within my psychology. Oh, shit, wrong quote. Undertale. I love that game. Nope. I don't attempt things that I can't draw without reference. For example, for animated background scenes, I will immediately create guides in 3D because it takes too long otherwise. There we go. He's also said that the biggest strength of digital animation is the ability to more seamlessly apply photography, aka compositing, effects directly. Recently though, starting with the first JJK opening, he's been spending less time doing key animation and much more directing and storyboarding openings, shorts, and even video game promotional videos. So with more overarching creative control and that digital workflow, he was able to basically collapse the barriers between certain departments, which is how we get scenes where lighting, color, background, camera, and effects all feel so closely intertwined. With animation and photography departments that are completely separate, you just could not do something like this perfectly synchronized backlighting setup where the sun peeks out for an instant and blasts straight through the simulated camera lens, while the animated character turns into an outlineless silhouette with rim lighting for that same instant. And it would be impossible for such a recognizable individual style to be this visible without that person having a hand in every aspect of the production. Even in cases of projects with very specific aesthetics that don't fit the same moody vibe like the Urusei Yatsura remake, certain elements still shine through, like the heavy-handed lighting effects and 3D integration. Still, some of those examples I gave at the start are not directed by Yamashita, which means that Bloomcore has now grown beyond the man himself and become a trend. The Heavenly Delusion opening, which is probably one of my favorites ever, has some of his key animation, and it looks almost more like his work than anything else that he has directed, but was actually the first directing credit for Weyland Zhang, who had worked under Yamashita doing key animation for the first JJK opening. Yuki Kamiya did Chainsaw Man Endings 3 and 8, playing a very similar overarching role to the one Yamashita did on the opening, and his style feels similar, albeit with more dense composition and bolder color palettes. And hilariously, he even took over for Yamashita, not only on Jujutsu Kaisen, where he directed both openings for Season 2, but also on Season 2 of Urusei Yatsura. In turn, Shun Yamaguchi, who assisted Kamiya with all three of those projects that I just mentioned, got to take full control of his first opening, the second one from Season 2 of Shangri-La Frontier. And while this one diverges a little, the through line is still visible, and the Yamashita virus continues to spread and claims yet another soul. Even The Summer Hikaru Died shows some very strong similarities, despite being directed by Ryohei Takeshita, who started directing openings even slightly before Yamashita did, but this style isn't visible in any of his earlier work. So yeah, this is what anime openings look like now. Get used to it, and if you don't like it, at least now you know where to direct your impotent rage. Thanks so much for watching, and if you want to help me continue to make videos like this, consider supporting the channel on Patreon. Just like all my amazing current patrons who can often be found striding purposefully down hallways with the sun at their backs. Smackintosh, Scorpiante, Katie L, Serial Isle, Leia Pico, Newtaf, Patrick Davison, Arborix, Junjun, Dr. Yolo McSwag, Rav G, Squidgoo, Joe, Fuggle Nugget, Annie, and Sammy Z, as well as all the other names you're seeing on the screen right now.